She had almost burnt the house down with a little Vermont cast and wood stove, like 3 times the year before. My father was still alive, so we didn't put fire, so that was my base, you know, we used $7 grand worth of oil that year, so. I've used a
You
lot
are
of
live until 2000 when you're ready.
Okay.
But it is, it's, I gotta keep all the rooms at least 45 because they all have heating pipes in them, we don't freeze. I have rooms all the
All right, so we're gonna start the meeting. Everybody's here?
Sorry, I was just complimenting the meeting.
Oh, no, we just got online, so you're just in time.
6:02.
6:02, that's fine. All righty. Any public comments from the peanut gallery? Okay, well, we have 5 minutes.
That's rare.
All right, town reports. Mika.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to make sure we have it all set up. Town reports. So this was kind of a funny week when I typed this up. There wasn't a lot to say in that TA report because there was a lot of information in transition. So I had committee reports needed, which has been an ongoing thing. Board of Adjustment Appeals and Planning Board are really the two critical boards that we have that we really need volunteers for. If anybody knows of anybody or interested in serving on a board. Barging, so on January 7th, there was a well-attended presentation. GI presented the report, the feasibility study that was done. The meeting on February 5th, there will be an agenda item for the select board to discuss that report and discuss what you would like to take as far as the next steps. Couple other things worth mentioning that were not typed on the report, but have transpired in one way or another since. The floats were removed out of the water yesterday, which is great. Everything for the most part went smoothly. The gentleman who was hired to help in the process will be coming out next week. All of the floats are kind of individually stacked right now and laid out at the garage. He will come in, he will do a report that is going to give us recommendations about what needs to be fixed, upgraded, replaced before they go back into the water in the spring. 2 floats were left in the water. Those are the 2 floats that are going to be completely replaced in the spring. They had some issues with it, so Public Works had to do a little band-aiding to make sure that they were safe and could still be used. There was a report to me that Public Works and the gentleman who was hired recognized that the commercial floats and the 2 adjacent floats that are right next to CTC were in very poor shape, and so those may need to be replaced or have some serious work done to them before they can go in. But we're going to wait until we receive the report from Zach Pettit and then be able to have a better understanding of what we have in front of us. And then we'll make decisions and progress in terms of making sure that whatever goes in is going to go in better shape than it came out. Any questions about that?
When do you expect the report? Do you have
So he said he will be coming out next week to do the assessment out of the water on all of them. And so he was very responsive to me. He emailed me yesterday letting me know that everything went smoothly and great, and told me that he'll be coming out next week. And so next week I'll find out what time frame he'll be looking for. Transfer station survey has been out for a little bit. It will be up until this Friday. There is, I believe, a pretty good number of people have responded already.
Excellent number of responses.
Good. And then the last thing on here is we have been using the same mooring software for the last couple of years. For the last year or two, the harbor master had made recommendations to switch to a new software that is more commonly used by municipalities. We are researching what that transition would be like, cost associated with it, and the process, and so I may be in the coming weeks approaching to you if and with some suggestions about a possible switch that we would want to do before the mooring applications are sent out around April. So those are the things that I have for the TA report. Yes.
Yeah, so on the committee members for the Board of Appeals and Planning Board, I guess we had a conversation about it, but I'm just wondering what, when I looked on the website, it's hard to tell what the status is of the vacant positions, and they should have a term, and I went and read through the ordinance. So say we have a vacancy, it should be, kind of moving through time, so, and somebody could be appointed to one of the vacant positions that might only have a year left or something. In other words, we should be tracking them in time, and then we should be, if people just don't roll over, they should be reappointed. And so I'm just wondering, and I don't know when that typically happens, and I'm just wondering, like if we had to come up with a list of committee positions and vacancies, can we assign terms to them now? Because it looks like it's kind of just moved through time, and I think maybe during the pandemic, maybe we just kind of dropped the ball.
So Krista has, in the last week or two, taken on the task to go through every committee and everybody's vacancies and terms and what is available, oaths and things like that. And so she has tasked herself to clean that up and make sure that it's current, and we will have a better idea of how all that is staggered when she is complete with that project.
Because when I was on the planning board, after my 3-year term was up, I asked if I wanted to continue, I was asked if I wanted to continue to serve. And I also put the position out for, open applications, and then they, added select board being reappointed. So I think we really should, particularly for those two boards, which are quasi-judicial boards, I think it's important. For the committees, I think a verbal, like, yeah, I want to keep going, it's fine, but I think for these boards, it's kind of important because, and also because of the attrition we have, I think once we figure out the status, I would like to kind of talk, kind of think about some strategies to get some people on these boards, because it's really important. We can't function without them.
There's 3 members on each of those boards, right?
Which is the minimum, the drop a member, we're out of the water.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's that. So the treasurer's report, I have the information for you, but the cover page is not in here. I realized when I was getting Chris to put everything up on Monday that it was not in here. If you look at the expense and the revenue report, there are no major concerns. We're halfway through fiscal year 25 budget, and so there are really no large alarming concerns. There are some individual line items within the departments that have gone over for a few reasons here and there. A lot of maintenance line items, contracted service, and that's really expected as a result of some of the transitions that we went through in this past year. As far as the overall budget in its entirety, we are in a pretty good shape. We are at this point right now a couple months behind in the actual reconciliation so the bills are being paid, everything is fine, we know the status of the bank account and all of that, but as far as sitting down and comparing and making sure that our books through Trio are reconciled with the actual bank, there's been a lot of transactions in the last couple of months. We've received a large sum for the grant funds. There's been a lot more than particular transitions from in and out of the bank account relative to reserve accounts. And so it's just taken us, Andrew and I have been a little stumbled trying to figure out the reconciliation, and we keep coming close, and then we're off by $70,000, and then we're close. And so as far as, you know, the overall picture, there is no major concern. It's that getting to that $0 reconciled. We're a little off right now, so we are working on that. And then you could see the Machias Savings Bank statement. That is the most current statement. And this one does show some withdrawals. School bus purchase, there was, with the grant matching grant, it was the most recent payment that we made for the floats. It was a motion that the board had made quite some time ago. And so those are some of the expenses, all of which would have required either your or school board members' motion at one point or in time to allow these transactions to come out of the bank. But all in all, the reserve accounts are in pretty good shape, especially since in the last couple of months we had the interest rate even by a couple of percent going up. It's making a good difference in terms of the interest that we're accumulating. There are several accounts that I have motions for that money has not come out yet, and so those are just the things on my end that I'm trying to be mindful and keep track of. So then that way I have a better idea, or more or less make sure that none of these accounts get drained by us or by me having coming to you and asking for a motion when in fact there shouldn't be any money in there.
Right.
So any questions about that?
Yeah.
David had his hand up first.
Why do all the accounts say unknown in the, no. For example, wages, unknown.
So that is, so the second part of it is where you can put like descriptions in, and it's just the trio thing.
Right.
So if you look at, for example, page 2, wages 1,000, full-time, budgeted number 233, current month 14,000 and change, year to date 89,000. So those are the numbers, and then the second line is just repeating the same information.
On page 1 under 1,300 with the tax commitments, is that what has been we've received to date what's budgeted pretty closely? And will we?
No, so with the tax commitment for revenue, that's one of the line items in TRIO when we're putting this information in, that we're putting, what we have to put in is the number that we're going to expect to receive based on the tax commitment in revenue. So it's, you know, year to date, we've received a little bit more, but the number is, it's not properly correlated with what actually has come in, just because of what we have to put in there. I know that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, but,
So,
okay.
so is it the number from the form?
It's the number from the tax form when we're doing the overall budget and anticipating, you know, you've got debt and all of these different things that come into play in the overall picture, and then all with those things in mind and what the full, you know, $4 million, you know, is the overall budget. You have debt and school and all of these different parts that play a role in it, and then you have an anticipated number that you're going to need to collect from taxes to make this. And so when we're putting in the estimate revenues, I have to plug that number in to give me the full picture. But because there are several different accounts that we are collecting money in for taxes, that we're not tracking it the same way. And so this number isn't the number that we've collected, it's the number that we expect to collect within the fiscal year 25.
Thank you.
And, so the system that we currently use is Trio. Trio is a municipal system that we use, and they are transitioning over the next couple of years to Trio Web, and we have started the process. And so in March, the employees are going to get trained on how to use Trio Web, and as of right now, April 1st is our transition for Trio Web, which in some ways make it really great, because then any of us would be able to access it on any computer as long as there's internet. But there will be some transitions because everything will be web-based versus just on the computer.
Very nice improvement, thank you.
Unless the internet's out, in which case we don't have access to anything, whereas now we at least have access to Trio.
Any other?
So the other thing that's in here is just the list of the few permits that have been issued by the code enforcement officer received in the month of December.
Yes.
And that is everything for the reports.
Okay, any other questions? All right, moving on. Item 25-003, to amend the Town of Shabig Island Employee Handbook to allow any employee who is eligible to enroll in the employer benefits the option to enroll the domestic partner.
So this is something that was brought to my attention when we had one of our new employees sign up the Anthem health insurance that the town has through Maine Municipal Association. Maine Municipal Association does recognize domestic partnership. The town did not have that option as something that we were signed up for and had voted for. And so the individual asked if that would be something that we would be able to do. And I said I would bring it to the board's attention. The way that the budget stands, it does not have a direct impact on the budget, just more or less specifically because the positions that we have hired new employees for were already budgeted positions with health insurance coverage for family plans, which are actually more expensive than the plans that these individuals are being signed up for. The having the domestic partnership option allows individuals who are not married or in committed relationships, as long as they would have to sign a notarized document saying that they've been together for a certain amount of time, they expect to live, they share expenses and so forth, and they provide that document to the health insurance, and then they're able to sign this, and then they would be applicable to breaking down in the payment of the health costs the same way that any other employee. And so I'm recommending and hoping that the board would support and approve this, because I think it would put the town a little bit in a more appealing situation, especially for younger individuals who might not think that marriage is for them or not there yet, but they are in committed relationships.
Great, all right. Any discussion?
Do you happen to know if it's a couple who are married versus a couple with a single person with domestic partnership, are those rates the same?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, so what it's, yeah, they're the
Okay,
same.
thanks.
So it would be adding an individual, a spouse to the plan, and that cost is same.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you also explained that well when you said they were hired with as a married partner in the budget. So it's not costing any more because that was already in the budget. That would have been one of my questions. Explain that, so that was good. Yeah.
Carol, did you have a question?
Yeah, but I just wanna, I understand for the position where we know someone's interested, it's not gonna have an impact on the budget. But we are, in a sense, expanding the eligibility, and I don't know objection to that, but it, you know, we are widening the eligibility of the employees and their access to healthcare. Problem with that, you know, I just wanted to say, I think that's what we're doing. And then the other question I have though is it any more administrative work on your end? It doesn't make any difference?
No, because what happens is if an employee is hired and they are applicable to the benefits, they fill out the paperwork and we send it to the health insurance. If they have one person added to the list as an addition, there's no additional work for the office. And one thing that's kind of relative to this, but more or less relative to the agenda items. The agenda items, we're kind of trying out something different rather than having a memo like I have had in the past in the, with the suggested motion. We're trying to write and stagger the actual agenda items in the statement of a motion. So then the board members, if they need assistance as to whether they want to make a motion or not, they could just read the agenda item.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I'd like to move that we amend the Town of Sebago Island Employee Handbook to allow any employee who is eligible to enroll in the employee benefits, the option to enroll a domestic partner.
any second? Carol seconds? Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, public discussion.
Do you want to say anything about domestic partnership coverage for health insurance?
I like being single.
Okay. That's
Excellent.
almost relevant.
Well, I think having the town support our community members who are committed in working for the town and supporting the things that go on is a good idea, so
Okay,
I'm supporting. Thank you, Vika, for bringing this up.
yes, thank you.
did you vote?
Nope.
We haven't voted.
All
Let's go
right.
vote.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Opposed? Ayes. Possible. Great, motion passes. Good for us. Item 25-004, to adopt the proposed code of ethics and conduct policy that has previously been discussed by the select board.
This is something that was discussed about this time last year. And a policy, which is in the packet, was put together. Carol put a lot of work into it. The board was the board had agreed to let other committee members weigh in on it. So Bob had emailed other committee members weighed in on it. And then a lot of other things kind of took place. And so this was never brought back for a vote. The board at the time did agree with what the language was in here. And in looking at other agenda items that had been kind of moved down the list, I had seen this one and thought that maybe it would be a good idea if the board finally make a decision whether they want to choose to adopt this policy or not after all the work that went into it.
All right, yeah, so we discussed, was there a code of ethics before?
No.
There wasn't, oh.
No,
Oh,
most
so we're
towns,
overdue.
so most towns have them, and
Yeah.
there's two things here.
Yeah.
One is a code of ethics,
Yeah.
and one is a code of conduct.
Right.
They're a little different.
Uh-huh,
And so the code of ethics is particularly focused on not having a financial interest in actions. In other words, you have to recuse yourself. And it really comes out of, a lot of it comes out of Maine statute, and most towns have a pretty similar code of ethics, probably to MMA. So I looked at a lot of different towns, big, small. And then, and there's a thing about confidentiality and using, not using town resources for personal benefit. But I mean, it's basically really about not having, financial conflicts and also not trying to influence committees that, decision-making committees, particularly like planning boards and board of appeals, because that happens in towns. The code of conduct is really how we're supposed to behave.
Yeah.
And I put that one kind of into more plain language because it really varied a lot what people had, and I think I grabbed a lot of this from Powell. And I just liked the fact that it was like, we'll be nice, we'll, be respectful, and I thought, for anybody can understand that. This one is sort of more of a legal kind of background in the code of conduct. And my suggestion is if you, endorse the idea of having a behavior code, you can adopt it, and then if people wanna modify it, we can just, do that at any time. But I think and this really came up after the kerfuffle in the fall of whenever that was, you'll know, but, and then we worked with Mitch, the select board had worked with Mitch and Nika, and we all tried to sort of figure out a better way to operate, but I think it's important to put these in place, and I was kind of disappointed they never happened, so I appreciate that he was put them on the agenda. The other intention is that these apply to not just select board members, but committees and, even, people working for them. So this is kind of a universal thing. The employee handbook has requirements for behavior, so it's a little different. We didn't kind of went back and forth. They have their own thing in the employee manual, but this is really about committees and the select board and any of the official town committees, not a nonprofit.
This document would really, I think, be helpful for the board to, as a guide, if there are board members on other committees that you're receiving communication or we're receiving for inappropriate behavior or language or things like that, when we, I think the understanding is if this is to be adopted, what would happen is any committee member, whether they update their term or whether they sign on, would sign off on this. And so it would be a document that would be given to anybody that is representing the town as a committee member. And then this is something that would allow the select board to reference and kind of cross-reference if you have complaints about board members that you can refer to and say, clearly poor language or whatnot. So it would be kind of more or less a guided document. And Carol said it could be changed or revised at any point because it's a policy. You have the right as a select board to make those changes in a regular meeting.
If we pass this tonight, will all the board members and committees be asked to sign this form as is?
Ideally, yes. I think with the task that Krista has in front of her right now, making sure that we are all current and clean with the board members, their, how long they're on in terms and things like that, we would kind of incorporate it within that somehow. But the goal definitely would be with the new coming fiscal year that going forward, that it's part of the routine when a committee member or an incoming committee member takes an oath. This would be a document that they would receive and need to sign part of their oath.
And I would suggest that we need to move that ahead even before the people come on board. I think all of us ought to be signing it right now.
Yeah. I see no problem with that. All right.
Yeah, I thought you were going to stay for the
You don't have anything? Oh,
parking and traffic is next.
okay. All right, so any discussion, shall we vote on it? Any motion, David?
Yeah, I'd like to move we adopt the proposed code of ethics and conduct policy that has been previously discussed by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, further discussion, comments?
Good move.
I agree.
Was there a second?
Second.
Oh,
Oh,
Eliza, seconds, and Libby. Okay, let's vote. All in favor,
Thank you.
4 yeas, no nays. Motion passes. Item number 25-005, to adopt the proposed changes to the parking and traffic ordinance to only allow resident parking on Stone Wharf. Okay. Well, I've gotten an earful about this one. From residents.
there is, if you look on page 4 is really where there is an only adjustment and change.
Yeah.
Carol had suggested that this be placed on a future agenda item, so here we are. You'll see on the back that there are 2 attachments as far as the pictures.
Yeah.
One is with outlining based on the proposed changes, what area that covers. And then I did leave in the original one in it, just because in the description, on page 3, when it really goes into detail about Stone Wharf, it is still referencing some of those things, and so I didn't want people to be confused. So for reference, that information is in here. And I have received a couple of comments, and I'm happy to share with those with the board after you all have your discussion.
So,
You can
Go on.
start.
Can I start? Okay. So I think this is a great idea in general to have that, I think, from what I see, I mean, Stone Wharf is big. Parking there is part of it. And part of, I think, a lot of complaints we hear about is the commercial parking along the area, especially, of course, especially in the summertime. In wintertime, there's hardly an issue, but in the summertime, we see way too many commercial vans and trucks piled high with gear and stuff that are taking all the best spots. And they are there for a purpose different than ours. They're there for business, to help the island, of course, but they're there conducting business. Whereas I would venture to see what we're trying to solve here is to give the advantage to what's said here is residents, but I would like to amend that to being any whatever you want to call them, property owner, resident, summer or year round, get this kind of permit, and it's essentially to push the trucks and the vans farther down the road, so they have to walk 5 to 10 minutes farther, and they don't have the prime spots. But the rest of us get it because we are the day-to-day users of this. I thought, because I thought I knew the map, but when I was looking, I thought the map was going to include what's marked, but also the perpendicular areas as resident and, you know.
What do you mean the perpendicular?
Well, we don't have a word for it.
The gravel.
Gravel, what's called the gravel area?
So upstream of the gravel.
Yeah, everybody's perpendicular. I mean, that to me is essentially almost the same convenient parking space. The worst space is further down the road. Nobody wants to go there for all kinds of reasons. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I was thinking that Vico responded with this description, and I actually think, to me, this is preferred because it doesn't force everybody else up the road. And particularly this time of year, what we're really doing is making it priority parking sort of closer to the road. And to me, I mean, I think I just wanted to say what the kind of objective is of this is to, as a person who commutes on a regular basis, and I come down there at 6:15 in the morning, and a lot of the spaces are already full.
In the wintertime?
Yes,
Oh.
quite a few. And, you know, I've seen teachers running down to the boat because they've had to park really far away, hauling all their gear because they bring stuff to the classroom. I've seen elderly people trying to navigate all the way down from, you know, further up. So we talked about expanding handicap. We have a lot of people that may not actually be handicapped, but, you know, the closer they get, the better it is. So I think the incentive is really given our elderly population, and rather than trying to establish a commuter zone, which gets complicated because commuters aren't the same as they used to be anymore. We're not all about 5 days a week.
Yeah,
I think having resident parking, and I agree with you that it should be expanded to be a seasonal resident. I did, after the fact, because I received some of the same comments, and I think they were good comments. I looked at what other towns do, and typically they use someone who has you have to have a registered vehicle in that town.
yeah,
And then, of course, I ended up talking to a seasonal resident who actually brings their car over.
yeah,
So I think maybe, maybe it's a property ownership but then it gets tricky if people are renting a lot. So I think a registered vehicle is a good idea, and then people could have a little discretion if somebody has a unique circumstance. I think the goal is to provide some preferential parking, not to prohibit people. And so that's my, that's my take on it. I don't know if the board wants to just enact this going forward, or if we want to do this, through May, and then maybe switch to the other system we used last year on a trial basis. So my suggestion is maybe we think about it from now until, I don't know what you were thinking, Vika, but I was thinking maybe now until the end of the spring, and then maybe reevaluate.
David?
Can I ask a question, Carol?
Yeah,
Are you suggesting that
wrong map.
what's that?
That's the wrong map. Flip it over, I guess.
The one with the big area.
So this is, so we basically just encompass this area here and not
Okay.
this area.
Okay, all right. So in other words,
That's
that's pretty close, but, it's going out to the edge. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Liza.
I want to bring up a suggestion by John Rent about not allowing overnight parking in that location after 11 p.m., which is really another good option for making sure that there are no business vehicles left in that area. Boy, I really like that idea in many ways. I think it's problematic because how do we police that, enforce that between 11 p.m. and
You'd have to go down
5
there
a.m.
at night and
right, that could
I
become,
think
A
that would be
volunteer
difficult to enforce.
that could become problematic. And I do have concerns about the whole issue, and this was in an email from another community member, about how do we define a resident versus a seasonal resident and property owner. It just becomes, it gets muddy, because if someone is a property owner and they barge their car over, or someone is staying in their home and using their car, they're not a property owner, but they would be able to park there. I just see, I see some problems that could happen with that system.
That's why I recommend a trial basis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how, I think we tried this other thing last fall, and
Yeah.
I think it was very successful. And we had a lot of concerns and kind of a lot of community concerns. So, I mean, what I would suggest is maybe we try it. I do think expanding it to, I think using what most towns use, which is that you have a vehicle registered in the town, then you're eligible. And that's kind of what CTC is using. They're saying your car has to be registered in Maine at least.
Yeah.
So they're kind of using a similar criteria.
So registered to the town, but if somebody also owns a property on the island and their car on the island is the one they bring over from the mainland.
Then I think they talked to Vika
Yeah,
and
so
she
But we'd have to
confirms that.
encode that into the message we send out, that don't freak out, you can still get your car registered.
I don't know, I would ask Vika because
I
she's the
Yeah.
one that
think
has
if you
to.
provide language that a Shebig taxpayer,
Yeah.
registered voter, something
Property
along those
owner,
lines,
yeah.
because you can, the circumstances of how few of those people would be, that special circumstance is gonna be very limited when if they don't have a registered vehicle out here, but they're property taxpayers, okay, here, you own property on,
Yeah.
15 Bar Point Drive or whatever.
Yeah.
it makes it very simple to figure that out at that point.
Okay.
And would their car also be registered out here?
That's how
Not
most, I will
necessarily.
say that's how most towns do it, even seasonal towns, that's how Long Island does it.
Okay, and I like that idea because it means that it generates more income for the town, is that correct? If we were to have more people who register
I
their
wouldn't want
cars.
to try to encourage people to register their vehicles out here. I mean, the one issue we are going to run into is there are contractors, people who you're trying to ultimately avoid from parking down there, because
Yeah.
there's 60 people that come over here every day. And that's not an accurate number, but
Yeah.
there are contractors who have their vehicles that live out here now that they have registered at, a friend's house because there's no criteria of, you just need an island address to put on
Okay.
the registration. And so there is going to be
Hmm.
some of that would have to be worked out, because a lot of these vehicles are registered on the island, and then you're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
So,
Yeah.
how about if we go back to the drawing board and kind of tighten up the language and see if we can come up with a criteria that is trying to meet the objectives we're trying to meet without creating a huge hassle on the town side.
Yeah.
And I think we can't, the next meeting's a budget meeting.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Next one is.
Correct. So the next meeting where this would be discussed would be the February 5th.
But I think rather than try to edit real time here, we should give people an opportunity, particularly we have some objections. So I think it's fair to kind of rework it, bring it back, and I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, so this esteemed group that's gonna be registered vehicles on the island only, will it be just this lower half or the gravel area also?
I guess no one's excluded above that zone.
Correct.
Any resident can park anywhere.
Oh,
But
okay,
all
so
it's
that's pretty
saying is,
limited,
it's really excluding kind of non-residents.
because most of the summer, this is closed off anyway.
Well, I think that's why I think we should try this through May.
Yeah,
and
so it's
see.
not, it doesn't really impact that many people. I mean, that many spaces, ultimately, what I.
Correct.
This time of
It
year.
would help. I would say it would help. If you go down there now in the morning, when you first go,
Yeah,
the majority of those spaces
Yeah.
are full
in the off-season, yeah, probably really helps.
all the time.
Yeah, all right. David?
Yeah,
There are a lot of
I'm fine with putting off the discussion for another couple of weeks, but I think a lot of what I won't call them objectives, or objections, but concerns have to do with who's eligible, who isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And yet what we have here is that the town office actually has to issue the permit to park in that area. And I think that would address most of those issues, or at least push them onto our town management really to
be
make
the
decisions,
arbitrator.
making sure that everything
Arbiter.
is copacetic, whether they're listed here on the island, or whether they're from away, et cetera, those kind of wishy-washy decisions can be made by the town office.
Yeah. And-
I would prefer that we're a little bit clearer, because
Yeah.
parking is one of those things that
Yeah.
we all know.
People always
People
easy
get
in.
concerned about it, and I did hear from a seasonal resident who's not a registered voter, but owns property on the island, who feels it's not appropriate to exclude them from this area, and I would agree. So,
Yeah.
I think we need to, I think the concept is good, I think we just need to get a little bit better language. What I think would be helpful is if Pete and I could work on this, workable for her, and try to make the objective being more inclusive,
Yeah,
we could get it out to people earlier for any comments, and then kind of have it pretty final by the last,
mhm.
of the next meeting, February 15th.
One other question I wanted to ask does this imply a fee to get this?
Yeah, I mean, probably, I don't know what you were thinking.
Or do we
Fee
just
or no fee?
give them away as part of their?
I think that if you try to incorporate the fee right now, you would have a difficult time, especially, you would have to do it to every person parking at the snow pier.
Mhm.
I'm all for, as much as I don't want to pay a fee to, you know, to have a person, when they register their vehicle, if they want to park at the Stone Pier, you know, $25 or $50 for a sticker. The amount of revenue that we can collect in a year by simply collecting $25 to $50 from every vehicle that is registered on this island would be tens of thousands of dollars, when we're trying to work out up to a 30% design that's gonna be you know, it's just easy money that we're missing out on. But I think this is, you know, it's what you're trying to do here is to provide easier access to island residents, whatever the definition of a resident is, and really more or less exclude the commercial contractor parking down in the closest areas. And so I think I would recommend that you keep the fee separate from that. Us buying stickers, you know, I would recommend that if you do make something, that they would have to come to the town office to verify, and we can order stickers. It might be inexpensive, you know, $100, maybe $200 tops for us to order a couple hundred stickers or whatnot. And they would just put it on their dashboard, and if it's not on their dashboard, they get a ticket.
Yeah.
And that would be a simple way to,
I think
Cycle that
especially the
out.
first year, it's good to roll it out without a fee, so it's not seen, that's not what it's for. It's not to generate revenue, it's to control the traffic.
And I think the hope might be that at some point we have some additional parking
Yes, that's
that could
a goal.
really help us be more effective with this, but it is trying to, I mean, because I hear a lot of complaints in the morning as I get on the road, and what's, you know, the school kids get driven down pretty much, except for a couple. They all get dropped off, just like the mainland, so they're all getting right there. But for, you know, if you have a lot of stuff and you're trying to, and you're late, and you're trying to make it go, and you can't find a parking space, it's not this lane. I mean, so I think of Courtney Dowdy going to school. She just got her kids breakfast. She's running, you know, she's in the car, zipping down to the boat. She's got a whole cart full of stuff for her classroom, and she's way up the road because of so many contractor cars down there.
Yeah.
I just think, you know, she's a resident, and she has to commute daily to build the park closer. We did look at commuter parking. That seems like a hornet's nest because of the way people commute now.
Yeah.
So I think this is a simpler way to try to accomplish a similar objective.
David, then Eliza.
Yeah, I just want to confirm, we had one person who said that this might be illegal, and I doubt that it is, and I'd like to confirm, in fact, that we wouldn't be doing anything illegal by setting up this process.
the only legal requirement that there is to have a specific number of handicap spaces in an area that has parking spaces, and that meets the criteria. As far as how the municipality chooses to limit the parking in a municipally owned property, that's up to the municipality's discretion.
So that's not a problem.
Yeah, that's right. Eliza.
I think if we're including seasonal property owners who pay taxes, I think that softens it for me. And, but one of the really missing pieces I see is signage and education. So if a contractor has brought a vehicle over, how would they know if they're new to this that they can't park there? There's no signage that says stickers only, or residents only, or non-commercial spots only. So I think it's going to be really important to have really adequate signage for that whole area. Another thing I want to say is sometimes it's difficult to, it could get muddy, is that a commercial vehicle or a personal vehicle?
And that's
We'll run
something
into that as well.
was in this ordinance, you know, no commercial vehicles, or large, I'm not quite sure where we had it in here, but,
Yeah.
and that was, from the current temporary parking attendant, that was the big, the feedback is, how do you distinguish? Because not every contractor has their vehicle registered as a commercial vehicle.
Right.
Some are on island residents who have a commercial vehicle that might be parking to go to town, who are residents, some are not. I think with signage, it is an excellent point. We have avoided from buying permanent signs just because this is a constant changing. In this particular case, if something were to be approved by the board, we would most likely laminate some signage saying, you know, no contractor vehicles beyond this point, or only resident parking beyond this point, some kind of language, and then most likely create a QR code and put it on that piece of
There
paper,
we go.
so then all these tech savvy people can look at the QR code that says, for further rules or whatever, go to the website or check out the ordinance, something like that, so.
And have a one-page document just pertinent to the parking there, so people don't have to look through the entire packet to see what's
Yeah.
pertinent to their parking. I think that would be important. All right, and I just want to add one more thing. This is not pertinent to now, but for next summer. When we're looking at the summer traffic pattern, being able to have additional handicap spots available, because the demand, I heard several times that we need more handicap in the summer. No, I'm just throwing that in. Okay, shall we have a motion?
Yeah, no,
We're not having a motion.
I want to say, I like the idea that we're kicking it down another meeting or two, because I think we should roll this out in a good way that will hopefully last through the summer, and that we'll put it out there, we have good information, good signage, good announcements, everything. It's, because I think one of the biggest things people get upset about is when they don't know what's going on, the bad communication, and I think that's really vital that we do this right, roll it out as a trial. Okay.
I would encourage the board, if you do this, like Carol suggested, just for a couple of months, and then revisit
Yeah.
it before summer.
Right.
I think the best way to really upset people would be to enact this and say, this is enactment, and we're expecting that this is going to be through the end of, the end of the summer months. I think, seeing how, because the last time we started with very baby steps, it was 3 or 4 weeks.
Mhm.
And so I think that, that would be a good way to really see how things are working and then make the adjustments. That's the beauty of this particular ordinance, is you do have the discretion to bring it in front of you as many times for
Yeah.
conversation and change.
Yeah.
And I think with these small little steps, you'd further lead towards having something a little bit more concrete, and then allowing feedback from people about
But I
how
think
it's working.
that's important in the part of the communication, is that we are doing this on a trial
Baby
basis. And that's
steps,
baby
yeah.
steps.
Yeah.
Any other discussion from the board? John?
I would thank you all for this. It's a tough subject.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just speak up. Yeah.
No, you have to come up here.
what?
No, he's okay.
Is he
He just
okay
needs to
there?
speak
Yeah,
up.
we have better sound now.
He's a loud voice.
Signs don't work very well on the island. And I'd almost, have the contractors park off-site at a designated parking area and eliminate problem. And, and because that way, it's not on the golf course, they're not gonna get damaged. If they're in a town designated area, there's less chance anybody that goes there breaks in on the vehicles or whatever else, if there's expensive equipment for somebody, resident, getting something installed or something, a Tesla battery, whatever, there's less chance that person's gonna mess with a town, even if it's not town property, but it's town designated, a designated site. There's just less chance for that contractor to sleep easy at night, knowing that their vehicle is in a secure place. More secure than just more for, you know what I mean? I don't know, it's the same thing like you have permits to tie up a boat, but the most destructive thing down on the wharf are the cars. The cars destabilize all the granite on the top of the wharf.
Yeah.
All the damage, most of the damage to the stone wharf
Big.
has been from vehicles,
Yeah.
and you're not collecting any revenue from the vehicles. And I'm not sure,
Yeah.
I think it's still open to the public on whether or not you do parking stickers, but it's a good source of revenue because and it's almost like, I don't know, you go to a place like Singapore or parts of LA or New York, and they start charging transportation vehicles, taxis and everything else. If it's really heavy traffic, then it's more expensive to go to that area where you're creating more traffic. I mean, other municipalities do it in different ways, very effectively. So, you know, I think people would respect a parking permit, you know, and all that type of stuff. But I would take all the contractors and have them park in a designated area. I think off-site parking, I mean, it's the most expensive thing to park a car or to create more parking down at Stone Wharf. If you have to fill in a cove and all that stuff. I mean, right now in China, there's 14 different remote auto taxi services with no drivers. I mean, we're gonna get cars out here in another 10 or 15 years, and you can send them home or use them somewhere else, and there'll be a regular fleet of taxis bubbling around here of some sort. So, I'm just saying that, like, I would not invest in filling in a cove and doing parking. I would do off-site parking and go that route and parking permits. I just like that because we've always talked about this, about how much cost you have to pay for the tie your boat, but you don't have to pay for the car. The cars are all over the place. It's a mess.
Yeah.
The pump float's fairly organized, so.
Rest of it's a mess.
John, I'd like to ask you a question. If contractors are required to park off-site,
Oh, okay, so then utilize, you've got, you know, the town office.
Yeah.
You have, that's where you put your flyer. Hey, you're getting a building permit, you have a contractor coming, you need them to fill this out.
But if-
See, same with CTC, when they're barging, like, hey, all your contractors, you get them, there's a piece of paper that goes with
Right.
their invoice for barging that says you have to pay, you know, it's a parking fee.
Yeah.
Just do it that way.
But one of my questions is, with economic development on the island and trying to be business friendly, and we do have contractors that are out here often enough, they know the drill, they have the connections, and it isn't really a big hurdle for them to pull this off. But when we have occasional contractors coming out that don't have those connections, how do we make sure we're not being business unfriendly?
You just do it in a friendly way. It's like, hey, to bring them up to speed in a nice way, you know? I mean,
On the town website.
you can scream at somebody, you can talk to somebody in a friendly way and say, hey, welcome to Shabig. You know, we just need to park in a certain way because there's a lot of congestion in Stone Wharf.
Yeah.
And they'll be into that, they understand that.
Yeah.
John, you would be such a fabulous person to be in charge of this
Yeah.
media program, of course.
Yeah.
I'm just not a hero. But,
I know, but we could work around that, John. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you. That's good.
The drone park.
The what?
Drone.
The drone operation.
Yeah, you can run it from China.
But I think one of the things here is, starting with last year, I think this suggestion. I think we're just trying to gradually change all of our behaviors.
Yeah, it's what's gonna take.
Get people to think a little differently about what we are doing, and we haven't really adapted to the way usage has.
No, we have not.
There used to be a lot of taxis on the island. Back when my father and my Uncle Fred were driving taxis at age 13.
Yeah.
Big, long stretch, you know.
So I think that's really what we're doing. I think this is a trial, though. I
Yeah.
just want to make that clear. It's not, then we reevaluate.
I think it's good.
Hi,
Okay.
the other guy who lives right there. Everybody doesn't know, there's like 4 people left. The first thing was, I got a question, because I thought at first that it was no contractor parking at all the wharf road. Is that it? Okay, well, I would be very much in favor of that, just as he would. They gotta figure it out. And people aren't gonna like that, but. And then I was like, what does Long Island do? So I just looked it up, and they have stickers for parking down front. And how do they do it? And, you know, that's a good example to follow possibly and see how it works. And I think, it looks like they're doing $20 or something. I think like $50 is kind of steep, but it's mostly just to keep it in, and it's gotta be a sticker because otherwise they'll just give it to the contractor.
Yeah.
And then there's also, if someone has two cars, then you might be on one or the other car going down there, you
Two
know?
stickers.
You know, I don't wanna have to go home, I'm in my electric van and get a pickup to go park at the wharf, but I use a moped anyway, but, in the summer. But,
Yeah.
it's a tough thing, good luck, you guys.
How does Long Island work? Or like, how, I mean,
So they have ample space.
They have a
Different
lot of
situation.
space.
Yeah.
well, they have federal, it's all
But
federal.
they give preference to residents closer to the
The parking lot is a municipally owned parking lot, and so it is operated and maintained by the town. And when people come in to register their vehicles, that's how but they also have a section for just golf carts. They have a section for day parking. They have a section for if you're going to be there more than 24 hours. It's not enough for them, they say. Their town office staff says that it's not enough space, but they really have no idea how good they have it with the space and
Yeah.
The numbers.
more than less the people that we have out here.
And I think the suggestion of off-site parking is a good one, and I think as a long, as an overall solution, comprehensive solution, I think it makes sense, because that could help to cut down on the wharfront parking. I think it's I agree with both of you that expanding the parking there, to me, is, as my husband puts it, you're just adding more cars, so that's not really reducing the congestion. So maybe getting the parking out of there, and if you are in other parts of the world, I mean, we don't go drive to the Red Sox game and park in front of the park. I
No.
mean, we all are used to having other alternatives, so I think at remote parking, I'm just not sure, what the requirements will be, but I think it's a good solution.
So I'd like to
And that
throw
will
this in
also
the
take
mix.
time. Remote
Right.
parking, you have to develop it, you have to build it. I think what could be with a lot of these trials and errors could be adopted fairly quickly and inexpensive if there is very significant limitations for what is being accessed or who can park. I mean, you can make the stone wharf and then the areas, the gravel part, you can make all that resident parking only, and you have to be a property owner, taxpayer, or have a registered vehicle, so it expands the pool. All other parallel parking, or, contracted vehicles, no parking. Yes, you could provide them another location, but at the same time, they're all coming to work at some location, and so they are able to leave those vehicles in those locations. And I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it again, if the town played a role in covering insurance costs for a taxi to provide an opportunity for somebody who might not be able to afford that, we could have a taxi service out here, and then those contractors or whoever is not able to fit within the requirement of the parking area at the Stone Pier would need to call the taxi service. So if there's no off-site parking, that would be an alternative way where fairly quickly and inexpensively the town can provide a service to offset the loss that they would be providing to some people.
I'd like to throw this in the mix too, especially while there's an abutter nearby, but the idea of whether we close off parking along Wharf Road or not, but do provide parking where you make the turn onto South Road in front of Teddy's house. You could stack a lot of cars there. It adds 5 minutes to your walk, but you don't need a van, and it's a good long stretch of road along the golf course. We may have to beef up the road a little bit better to widen it.
I would discourage the board from doing that. It is really dangerous, that hill and that area in the summertime with people walking, with bikers, with people from the hotel. It's a really dangerous area, and when you get some cars, even if it is a long strip, and you get cars there, it's, I would discourage from having any kind of parallel parking on that road. It's a nightmare.
Just as bad at Wharf Road too, I've seen kids running outside from cars and almost getting run over because they don't know.
Yeah.
They get to the alley and they think, oh, let's walk in.
Yeah.
Right up the road.
And
People will like get behind them and
I was
say,
on-
hey, get out of the road.
when I was on the planning
It's
board,
tough.
we had conversations about the piece across from the historical somebody that bought Rubio and,
Oh, yeah. Oh, right, yeah.
The golf
property
course
owners.
owners that.
Yeah.
And regrettably, the town should have bought it,
Should have bought
because that would have been ideal parking, maybe it's still a possibility.
It's tiny. It's very small.
Well, but it would help, and I
Yeah.
think, you know, and then we have town-owned property towards the middle of the island that I think Bob has mentioned, we could make a remote lot. And so I think there are options for that. I think what we're trying to do is just sort of see if this makes a difference and kind of get people thinking that we don't have to do everything the same way we've been doing it all the time. And so that's kind of what the set of this.
Okay, Eliza, and then.
Thank you. One of my favorite options that was mentioned last year was to support taxi service on the island, possibly by covering the insurance. And it's not in the budget, but it's a good idea. There's a whole series of things that would need to happen. We would need to see if someone on the island would provide that service, for example, as an Uber or some manner like that, if the insurance was covered by the town. But I just want to put that out there again, that would be a good idea that contractors could access, because they are going to have to be resourceful to figure out how to get to the boat in time, and it's an added cost for people who are paying those contractors. So if it's adding another 30 minutes onto their commuting time, that adds up fast for 60 people that are coming over, and
$50
that's a
an hour.
lot of labor time that needs to be paid by people hiring. In any event, I really like that idea, so I just want to put that in the mix, but I like the fact that we're going to come up with better language, and thank you. That's all I have to say.
And, David, and then.
Yeah, I just want to mention that in support of what Vika was saying, and sorry, I'd have to disagree. There was one fatality and one bad accident that occurred at that intersection of the Wharf Road, and it's not a safe place.
Yeah, but we have seen people, last summer, cars had to park.
Yeah,
Make that
that's
turn.
true.
Oh, there's always been a regular, every summer.
Yeah.
There were less this summer that they came on the road than I've seen in the past.
But, so that is a bad.
It is a bad area.
Okay, got it. Yes, John?
I'm not saying this to create any rift. If you go back, and before Martha Dumont bought the inn in 2007, the inn had about 20 parking spaces. When Martha Dumont bought the inn, she took the entire parking area for the inn and filled it in and made a garden.
Oh.
And the inn, no offense,
Yeah.
because I'm not against the inn at all. It serves a great purpose. They really, really provide a great service. But they eliminated all the parking. And so, you know, it's all on the road. That's one of the 90% of what the problem is on that. And it, you know, it affects the whole neighborhood. You know,
For people.
I mean, as far as like the Slowbell, I am creating more and more parking. I mean, I've got way more parking than I'm supposed to have, and I still need more. So I'm just saying, but that they should really kind of address that a little bit, because they have. So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Good point.
that's what that is.
Alrighty, so to table this, we just say we're gonna table it until next time. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, everybody, that was a rousing discussion. Good job, okay. All right, moving on to our 25-006, to adopt the proposed ad hoc housing committee. Liza Jane.
You know what? I want to thank the input that I've had to redo this document. This document is intended to have a one-year ad hoc committee to take a look at what approach should be used to have the town be a part of the solution for year-round housing, and what model would best serve this community. There are several models that could be looked at, and so I think it's a matter of having a committed group of people to take a look at what options are there, what models are working, what are the elements of those models that we could bring here. And it would be a group that would include SECA, seasonal, year-round residents on this committee, and really take a look at also involving the community's input. And I like to get it done.
Yeah.
So if you look at page 2, in a bit against some very good advice, but this timeline on page 2 is based on a really useful conversations with people from the Genesis Fund who work with the communities around housing and coming up with a good timeline for doing an ad hoc. So I said, the goal would be to accomplish in each of these categories of months, just to make sure at the end of month 12, we're ready to make good proposals to the select board for addressing, and it's really coming up with a program for year-round residents, home ownership. We have good rental opportunities right now with SECA. Do we need to look at more? And being able to maintain to strengthen a year-round resident population of ownership on the island. That's the goal. So, thank you.
Great. Any discussion from the group?
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's very, very clearly laid out. So I just want to make sure I understand correctly. In addition to the non-voting members, which would be a select board member and the town administrator, you're looking at 5 members total, including 1 from SECA, right?
Correct.
Okay. And this has a term of 1 year, so the goal will be, by the end of next year, early January, it'll be done. Just want to make sure I understand. And then I think the multiple draft plans is a good idea. The only thing you might, on months 9 and 10, it says continued outreach to the community for input, but I would recommend you actually, have like a public meeting. And it's not a public, it's not a regulatory meeting in any way, but to actually have a public workshop so that people can, and maybe it's earlier, maybe it's months 7 and 9, but somewhere where you have a definite workshop, people can come and, because some people won't participate in the other mechanisms of input. So that would be the only thing I'd add, but I think it's great.
Carol, thank you. I think if you look at months 4 through 6, it says assess community input. Months 7 through 9 is outreach to the community for input. And then months 9, 10 is continued outreach to the community. So I think making sure.
I would actually add specifically a workshop,
Okay.
a public meeting.
There we go. Yeah.
Because it's pretty typical, that's what we did with the finance committee, and we had quite a few people attend, surprisingly.
Okay.
So I think it's just, it makes it sort of more official that you're looking for community input rather than more casual.
Oh, I was thinking this was more formal. So when I was writing community input, I was thinking it would be meetings that are offered for discussions about it and meetings that are available in person and on Zoom. So, good. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
And I also will add, because I was in a meeting today with Hannah Pingree, where she said the state is about ready to roll out a housing roadmap in the next couple weeks.
Wow.
So the timing is excellent. It didn't sound like it was money. It was more like how they're gonna help towns, but I mean, then we assume there might be some funding coming after that. So
Cool.
I think the timing is excellent, because the state, she said it's the #1 priority concern in the state law.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Good news. All right. Any discussion from the public housing?
Please.
Please.
On anything or what?
No. Item dash.
I think it's a great idea, and so it gives it seeker balance, whatever.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, and David.
I'll move that we adopt the proposed ad hoc housing committee.
Second.
Carol seconds. All those in.
Do we need any more community input?
more
Want to hear from you?
I want to
Say
do
something.
more like temp or staff housing, just because
Staff house.
there's, I mean, you can't get the 8 people out here. I've been up in Newcastle and Damascata, and they have long-term, like, 30 years ago, like staff housing to support
good.
restaurants in those areas and everything else. It's not just the inn, I mean, you're gonna start needing it.
Yeah. Good.
Sounds like good input for this process. Looking forward to hearing your ideas.
Okay.
All right, all those ready to vote? All those in favor? All 4 in favor, no nays. Motion passes. All right, good work, Eliza. Thank you for doing
Thank you all.
that. Let's see, other business. Do we have any other business?
I
What?
thought I had another business. I can't
You
remember.
mentioned it, that you were gonna have something in communications. But I think I know of no other business. Okay, moving on. Communications. Eliza, you hinted you had a communication job. Jane?
Oh, yeah, right, thank you. I received, under communications, I received a letter, and I don't know if everybody did, from Jane Frizzell about relief for property taxes. Actually started looking, thank you for your suggestion, Carol, started looking at, there is a program in the state, so I think we need to pursue this for the community, and I want to say that was a good idea that Jane had to ask about. In the past, it was called the circuit breaker, it has a different name now, so I think it would be, it was right. And then, but there's another one, there's some income guidelines. I had a difficult time finding information online in Cumberland, which apparently has the program. Anyway, I think it's worth pursuing, and there you have it, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, 2 years ago, they enacted, or maybe 3, the state enacted a thing where you're,
Right.
if you're over a certain age, you've been here long enough, your taxes won't change. It's a great idea, maybe. But anyway, that got repealed because it was not an income eligibility thing. So anybody could qualify. And so there's a new bill in the legislature that's kind of designed along the same lines with some income eligibility issues. But, so that may be one approach, but there are several towns that do have local, this isn't at the state level, so local programs to alleviate the tax burden for their local residents. Almost all of them that I'm aware of have an income threshold, and if your income is above a certain level, you're not eligible. So anyway, I think we should consider it. I would like to put it on a future agenda because I think Jane, took the time to write to all of us, and if, maybe somebody's willing to come back with, not suggesting anybody in particular, but Eliza, Jane, if you want to come back with sort of some suggestion. And it might be that if talking to one of the, some of the other towns about their programs might be one way to find out. Because I think several of the communities in southern Maine have a local program. The state also has a program, and but I don't think that should limit us to passing on.
Thank you. And I did have a nice conversation with Jane today about it, and we started looking together, and I said, it's time, Jane, we just need to start doing research.
But
And
also,
so,
the bill that's in the legislature would be great to testify in favor.
Yeah.
You don't have to go, you can just have testimony if you don't have time. But it would be good even if the town did that.
Yeah.
The select board could actually submit a letter, those are very, those are meaningful, saying we support this.
well, sorry, on our list was being in contact with Maddie Daughtry to get information, and,
Yeah, go ahead.
Could I suggest that you provide us with the bill number, so that we can make some noise there?
okay,
And this sort of kicks back to affordable housing, because as property taxes can be alleviated, it helps those who really need a break in property tax to stay living here.
I always object to the word affordable.
Well,
But I'd like to
whatever,
use language like, because it's
cost effective.
sustainable,
Sustainable.
which also is problematic. But really what it does is supports our year-round residents.
Yeah.
In a meaningful way that they've asked for. So I'll work on it with Jane unless anybody else wants to be good at research. David, I know you're good at this stuff too.
I forget half of what I heard.
Just write it down, you're really good at it. I know you
Don't
are.
forget where you put it.
Anyway, yeah, thank you.
Alrighty, good.
So maybe we'll do an update for the next meeting.
I would love to see the letter.
Oh,
I will have it for you tomorrow.
good, yeah, it's a good letter.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Jane.
I have a couple communications.
Okay.
Speak.
A few things in terms of communications. I did receive communications from the from GEI relative to setting up an appointment about South Shore Drive. So Carol and David were the two individuals that have played a role in that, and so I will email you tomorrow in communication with her to try to set up. She's looking to see if next week would be a good time to meet, so that was one communication. Another communication I did receive was from the Burnells asking to meet again. The last where things were left off, the board asked to see if they'd be interested in providing another proposal, and then at that point, two board members and the code enforcement officer would meet with them, and so I waited to hear back what that proposal is. I think the suggestion was to just meet with me to talk, but I think where the board left it is if there is a proposal from the board, then two board members and select board and myself would meet with them. And so I'm following through what was left off from the last discussion. Did receive a communication from town attorney relative to more or less drafted MOU language about the town and Yarmouth working together to have the town be the primary spokesperson when it comes to decision-making down at Cousins Island Wharf. And so that I will circulate with the small group of the board members that have worked with that, and then bring it to the entire board, and then if the board agrees, we'll bring it to the Yarmouth town manager to see what their board is. It's very simple, very straightforward language. So that's, I think, all I have for communications relative to potential future discussion coming down your way.
Yes.
So
Carol.
just, I have a couple quick ones. I've been contacted by Cumberland Land Trust about partnering. There are several grants out there, mostly related to coastal stuff. They're interested in doing something to restore, move down the line to restore the hook. You know, they have a pretty big list of things, the grant programs that they're thinking of. I'm not sure I can support all of them, but they asked, they asked me a lot of technical questions, but also if the town would be willing to partner, and I said, I can't speak for any financial, I can't speak for the board, but they're sending in a letter of intent, and they are listing the town as a potential partner, but not committing us. But since there's no commitment with this letter of intent, I think that's fine. I was also contacted by the coastal erosion group that gave the program at GMRI last year that I've still been working with. They are applying for the same grant for a different kind of application. And they are working, so the Island Institute is actually going to be the applicant, and they are working with all the Casco Bay Islands. And so I said, likely we would also want to be included. So that's, I haven't committed us, but I've sort of given them the green light. But before they actually submit an application, we would have to make a decision to provide or not, to provide a letter of support. So that's really when the decision point is. So I didn't think we should slow them down, but at the same time, we're not, we would have to formally decide before they submit.
Great.
But we would know what we would see what the intent of everything is.
Correct.
Right.
And that's why it's kind of early stages, so there's not much they're kind of trying to figure that out right now. But the way the state has done it now is you submit a letter of intent, which is just a letter, and then they'll pick the promising projects, and only those people make an application, and that's to eliminate a bunch of people doing a lot of work for nothing. I think it's a good idea.
Well, that's good. Yeah,
And
both good organizations that do a lot to serve, so.
it just popped into my mind, I don't know if I can ask it right now, but where are we on the fellow application?
Well, thanks for mentioning it. It's coming along nicely. Aldrich and I have done a lot on the text. We've got to the point where you have to come up with what would the position do each quarter. I was stuck. So I've been in contact with Vika and Lisa at the Island Institute. We're going to be talking Tuesday at 1, and I'm just hoping she's going to give us a lot of guidance. She has a copy of what we've done so far, and I'm hoping she'll give us guidance on what we're envisioned for the position, and then help us come up with
I
what
could
needs to be
add some
done.
tasks that would be helpful, based on some of the things, that we have. If we ever get the housing grant, there's a whole list of things.
We can share the application with you.
Yeah, that would be good, because I think that's one thing I can do.
Okay, I think there's so much that we're expecting this position to do right now, so.
I think it's
No.
okay, I think it needs to meet the criteria of the grant, but I think, I think it's okay to put in more than we can do, it's fine. We have a huge need, not just a need.
It offers a rich opportunity for the right individual to really do some meaningful things. That's what's clear in the application, is that what we're asking someone to do with a lot of support that our town can offer in the Island Institute and GP-COG, it really could be a rich
And when
experience.
is that due?
JP Cog fellow is starting and coming out to the island tomorrow, and Aldrich will be bringing her around.
Oh, great.
She's coming on the 10 o'clock boat.
Nice. Great.
And then the application for the island hall,
Is due on January 31st. It's got to be done before then, because I'll be out of commission for a bit. And I have very good leads on housing, because that scores extra points.
I know, I think if housing really helps.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
2 good leads, just saying. May I add one more thing? I had a conversation with Ted Ballard today about the parking at the top of the hook. He wants to be able to see a detail, like the stakes are there, but he still is asking for something a little more detailed to bring back to his people. And I think, am I correct, we still need to do that? Is that on the list? Something that's more detailed so they see where the parking spots are.
I will reach out to him.
Okay.
I think at this point, the ask is really falling into having very specific criterias and says about what the town can and cannot do with their own property. And so I think the town is working very closely, but the asks could potentially cost the town more money in providing some of that information before the work can even be started, so.
Thank you.
I'll reach out to him and,
Thank you.
Great. All righty. Guess it's time to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Well, yeah, did we get those? You sent it to us separately, sorry.
I think I saw it come through. Any discussion of these minutes? A motion to accept minutes? David? So moved. Well said. All those in favor?
Who's the second?
Huh?
Who was the second?
I'll second it.
Liza Jane, second.
I haven't seconded anything.
All right, and we all approve. Good for us.
And we're meeting next week?
Budget, yeah.
The
yeah,
budget,
we're
so
meeting,
only
I think
every
we're
week.
meeting every week for the next 10 or 11 weeks is what I have on my
But-
calendar.
Is it,
Chart.
So when we're talking about things on a future agenda,
That's
for
for
in
future,
February 5th.
just in general, but more
Gotcha.
or less February 5th meeting will be the next future agenda.
okay,
So the
Got
big
it.
one is the Bennett's Cove.
Bennett's Cove will be the big topic for discussion in
Yeah.
November, on February
February
5th.
5th.
February 5th.
Either write up and or some kind of brief verbal presentation from boards, parking.
Yeah, so did you want to, so do they know? Because I think we need to give them enough notice.
That was on my list to do tomorrow. I sent out emails to the board, so there's gonna be 4 of them that, we would be asking to see if they can come. And then the other ones just have a verbal, a written, just gonna ask for a brief written statement.
So the 4 they would want to come.
It's gonna be the Climate Action Team Planning Board, Coastal Waters, and Broadband.
Oh. And, sorry,
And
I
not
missed,
the planning board or the board of appeals. I thought I had suggested you hear from them, especially.
In person or in writing?
Well, I guess, yeah, because that's what I was thinking, but it's up to the board.
So, okay, so I'm sorry, I was wrong. Planning Board, Broadband, Coastal Waters, and Climate Action would be the 4, that, would be in person. And then a written statement about where things stand and whatnot from the rest.
I
Planning
guess,
Board,
I
Broadband.
guess what I was thinking when we discussed this, but maybe it's just me, it's just given the situation where both boards are really running pretty slim, I kind of wanted to hear from them and kind of understand what the challenges are and like.
So
is there
Coastal
any-
Waters too?
Yeah, coastal waters.
I'm sorry,
Planning board and
Board of Appeals.
And maybe you don't want to do them all at the same time, maybe we split it up. Those are 2 quasi judicial boards that are very important for us, and so because I went through the last planning board meeting and said, think about what would help, to get this board fully populated, or are there things that you need to do to help you? I'm just concerned if we lose a member on either of those boards for a period of time.
yeah.
And we haven't made much headway getting people to join them. So that's concerning. And not that I don't want to do this.
right. But, and it's not only to hear from them, but for them to hear from us and how we can help. So I'm glad you said that, thank you. It's really about, I want to be informed about what they're doing, but also to say what more do we need to do.
So maybe you can
So-
split those up to 2 different meetings. And I don't think it's urgent, I just think it would be good to hear. And then maybe we'll know what the status of all those committees are from Krista, so we can kind of make sure everybody's on the same page.
Broadband, I have been in communication with. Originally, they were gonna do a brief update at this meeting, and I pushed them to that one. And then, so maybe we'll do like Broadband and Coastal Waters, and then, because I think Bennett's Cove, I wanna try to, we wanna stagger the agenda in a way where it's gonna be productive, not counterproductive. And so Bennett's Cove is gonna take a lot of time and energy that adding any heavy topics might not be the most efficient way to get through the meeting.
And then,
Yes.
I guess thinking about maybe the next meeting, there's also one other outstanding item, and I'm kind of a roadblock, sort of, but the GEI had sent us a proposal in stone here. And Bob was gonna be away, he sent his comments, and I think we're really giving them the parameters they're gonna work under for what we think are the priorities, so I don't think it should be just be involved as sort of their subcommittee. I think the board needs to endorse, yes, these are the, ground rules. And so I just haven't had time, but I was going to prepare a memo that we would then send back to DEI. But I'd like that to be on the next agenda so that the board, officially say yes. And since Bob will be back by then, I think then he's also part of it, because I think that's a pretty important direction. I think we had a meeting, I think they're on the same wavelength, but I will say that's been maybe a mistake in the past, is they're kind of off doing things, and it's not necessarily what the board wants. You know, not
Yeah.
just, not just
Yeah.
company, but I think we have to be in the driver's seat, is what I'm saying. And I have my thoughts about what we're gonna restrict them to in terms of stuff, but I think it has to be the board.
Okay.
And when will we be able to start getting information from the finance committee about what we have the capacity to afford for phase one
Yes.
of
I
the,
think for a while.
So I think that the finance committee had their first official meeting last Friday.
okay,
And then there's another one this Friday. They have a lot of information that has been thrown at them.
right,
And so they're a very eager group to get started, and you could see there's a lot of interest in it. And I know, you know, with the capital improvement discussion that's coming up, there are board members that are going to be interested and will be attending. But I do think that the board is not going to receive the extent of recommendation from the finance committee that you might want.
you're talking about the select board.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there will be a lot of valuable information received. I think they have a lot of work and a lot of material to cover in front of them that, you know, they might not be able to get through it or get it done as quickly as they would even like.
And who's the chair of that?
John Rank
It
is
is
the
John Rank.
chair, and Chip Emery is the secretary.
Okay.
They seem like a
Good
good
luck.
committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're ready to roll, but they have a lot of very dry reading materials that has been
Yeah.
put there in their direction.
God bless. All right.
I have one last thing.
Okay.
So we need to put it, I'll have people filling out the application for that ad hoc housing. So we'll need to be able to discuss that at the next meeting.
Oh, okay, so you need an executive session.
We're gonna need an
Yes.
executive session.
Ah,
Yep.
Okay.
Andy. Okay. I think we are
Yep,
coming in
so-
on the close of our meeting. Any other?
Nice to see
I
you.
guess we could have Rich do all our meetings, because we get done early.
Sort of said,
Yeah, this is good.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Wait a second.
All right. All those in favor?
Done.
Yay.
What do you want to say?
What?
Huh?
Well, I guess I was just wondering, when they did the presentation for the award for the parking and they had the second tier, how did that go to that?
That was the previous, we're on our 15th engineering. The previous engineering firm, that was something they proposed. It was definitely thinking out of the box. It's nothing that's gonna be implemented in my lifetime.
Okay, no, the reason I'm saying it is just because my goal is to kind of try to refocus is that, I mean, you have a $4 million deep water channel,
Correct.
and none of that was even like discussed, and it's like.
Well, they were talking about two wards, maintaining the one we have and building the second one.
No, but if you could put a ramp off the set where the 7T is, and still have the 7T there. You would create more boating punt float area there than you have at the breakwater. In calm water, that's hurricane proof, that is for the test of time.
Yeah, the meetings, yeah.
Yeah, the
I know,
meeting's over.
I know, I'll write a letter about it again. I mean, I've
Well,
mentioned this over and over, but
I
I just,
encourage you to participate in
the
it.
only reason is because with